Hi everyone, I am Nate Twining, and I'm studying applied math.
And I am Tony Turner, and I am studying mechanical engineering. Together, we are currently working with the community of Los Sanchez in the Dominican Republic. We hope this presentation on family structures and roles in the Dominican Republic will help us to better serve the community and be a resource for others working within the Dominican Republic. To start with, why does learning about family structure and roles in the Dominican Republic help us to better serve communities within the Dominican Republic? It is important for us to understand the values of the people we are working with. We will never fully understand everyone's values, but it doesn't mean we should at least try to understand. In our case, the community of Los Sanchez, most people are related, so it is important and highlighted to concentrate on families and family structure. With a greater understanding, we can communicate clearly. Understanding how families are structured is important so that we do not misstep in our interactions. One example in which this is prevalent is well placement. In my group, specifically, we are planning to put a new well in the community, and when finding a location for the well, we have to consider the motivations of the community for the location of the well. We also have to be aware of concerns of ownership and sharing, as if we put the well on someone's land, they have the potential to only share it with their families or other related members. Understanding families will help us be aware of this bias and motivation when interviewing and communicating with the community. Another example of this is the water distribution route. When we went out and surveyed, a lot of people would give us suggested water routes that go right by their family's house. So one example of this is, say I get interviewed and I say, oh, I want the water distribution route to go right by my brother's house. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, just something we should look out for when gaining information and researching. A quick note, a lot of our research and the statements made in this presentation are generalizations and don't reflect everyone in the Dominican Republic. Please take this information as a starting point for understanding family structures and roles within the Dominican Republic.
In the communities we interact with, there are children present, and it is important for us to understand what the families expect of their children, so we do not cross boundaries or go against the wishes of the parents in our interactions with the local children. Doing so could potentially damage our relationship with the community, which would be a big stumbling block for future interactions, especially when we're trying to get work done and get the community to volunteer and work with us. So some of these things that are very important with children. Firstly, loyalty to the family is of the utmost importance. This is demonstrated by that everyone needs to come home for meals. Children even come home from school during lunch to have lunch with their family. Also, gender roles are very big and they start young. Boys tend to play in packs unwatched, while girls are carefully chaperoned. Young girls usually stay home to learn how to cook, along with many other domestic tasks. Boys tend to be given a much wider latitude in their behavior, while girls are expected to be quiet and helpful. Just like in America, where gender roles are tending to go away, this is happening in the Dominican, but it is at a slower rate, and they are still more prevalent there than they are here. An example of how this relates to our project can be seen when McKenna goes out to work, and then all of a sudden 5 guys will come up to help take her spot because they see that a girl is working. This is important for us so that when we see children behaving in certain ways that is different from the U.S., i.e. only boys running around outside and playing while both boys and girls tend to do so back home, you understand that this is a cultural norm and not something to be alarmed of. As people grow up, gender roles continue to be prevalent. Young men are commonly found to be experimental in their sexual adventures. In times past, this was a way of showing off how many families a man could support. It was a way to display his wealth. Today, no one would say that it is okay for a man to be promiscuous with many women, but it is understood socially that this happens and kind of swept under the rug. For women, the opposite is expected. They're expected to remain virgins until marriage. Socially, it is more difficult for women to have multiple partners because young women stay home to do domestic work instead of having an outside job, so they can't afford to get out. Obviously, though, if men are known to be sleeping around, then all women aren't following societal norms, and this is where a lot of single mothers come from. This is more common in poor areas where women are more dependent, and free unions are found instead of marriages. Young adults are expected to go out and get work to support their family. Around 5% of national income is from children sending money home to support their families from abroad. The number one day to send money home is on Mother's Day, more than any other holiday, including Christmas.
In a typical household in the Dominican Republic, men are seen as the head of household and are expected to be the breadwinners for the family. This means that men will make most of the money and are expected to provide for the family. Men, as the head of household, are usually the primary decision makers in the household. Men typically have more than one family. This takes place through affairs. These affairs are kept on the down low, and a man usually wouldn't tell his wife. But the man would make sure to send money to take care of the second or third family, as this is traditionally a sign of wealth and pride of how many families a man could support. This is now becoming less common and less of a sign of wealth and pride. Women typically have many children. One of the primary reasons why women have so many children is so that their kids can take care of them in their old age and provide for them, as Nate has mentioned on the young adult slide.
In the Dominican Republic, marriage is highly varied, largely based on class. First, here are a few constants. People in the Dominican Republic tend to marry young. By the age of 15, 11.7% of children are married. By 18, 40.8% of children are married. Men usually marry their primary family. However, they do not always have multiple families, but some do have affairs. Mothers who often have children from different fathers. This is largely found in poorer regions where free unions are more common. Free unions, along with civil and religious marriage, make up the three main types of marriages. The Dominican is highly religious, so religious marriages are popular. However, religious and civil marriages are more expensive, so they are widely found among the upper class and social elite. Free unions are more common among the lower class. Often they start with a series of free consensual unions, most resulting in additional children. As throughout the Caribbean, early pregnancies tend to result from free unions. Free unions tend to lead to larger families even if the father is not present. This means that households without both parents present still have the potential to have a higher water usage due to multiple children. In religious marriages, divorce is uncommon, difficult, and expensive, which further isolates it to the upper class. Free unions have no divorce cost because there is no legal binding. Also, just because someone is in a free union does not mean that they are not religious. It most likely means that they just can't afford a religious ceremony. For us, we should be careful with our preconceived notions of marriage because, especially in poor areas, marriage may have very different meanings than what we are used to in the United States.
Extended families are broad and extend far. This is due to the emphasis on family loyalty taught from childhood. Family trees are wide and branchy and extend far beyond uncles and cousins. This can be seen in our project in Los Sanchez in the fact that the local handyman doesn't charge any of his family members for his services. Surnames are also important and tell the story of a person's lineage. While surnames are not used in informal conversations or greetings, they are still important on official documents. Typically, the head of the household will use his last name. In any marriage, the wife's surname will become the husband's last name, Day, the wife's maiden name. Any children would use the man's last name. Formal documents still use both surnames or multiple surnames in cases. Modern transportation and communication through the likes of Skype, phones, and email have allowed for even broader extended family. There's also a tradition of wealthier families helping out an extended family that may not be as well off. This would be a sign of wealth and pride to be able to help out branches of your extended family that may not be as well off. As life progresses, people take on different roles within the family. Dominicans take pride in how old they are. Dominicans are not ashamed and go against the American norm of never ask a woman her age. They are actually happy to tell you how old they are and will tell you how good they look for their age. Children are expected to take care of their aging parents. There is no Social Security within the Dominican Republic, and this is the retirement plan of many. Again, this is one, if not the primary reason for having more kids than not. And as Nate has mentioned, there's a lot of money being sent back to the Dominican Republic from abroad.
So how do we apply this information to our current project in Los Sanchez? One of the biggest takeaways is from the gender roles and norms that we need to be aware of. We need to ensure within community meetings that women's voices are heard. Since the male/husband figure is the head of the household, he will generally make the majority of the decisions for the household. However, we have a unique situation in the community, that the community has a few widows have been pushed to the head of their household and tend to speak up in community meetings. However, we can do more. To further emphasize the need for women's voices in community meetings, we should take note from the Mukatani group and have women's only meetings. Community meeting where women can talk without any of the men present. This way we could get more of their pure thoughts and ideas. We should also try to communicate with more women in the community. When we call a community from here, we tend to only call males. So we should try to incorporate more female contacts or women translators into our group. We should also be aware of the family biases when receiving information from community members. It's not bad, and obviously makes sense to look out for one's kin, but we should separate the family bias from the well-being of the entire community when it comes to making decisions on well placement and piping routes.
In summary, families are very important to people in the Dominican Republic and the United States, but families may look drastically different in each place. We have looked at a small sample of things that make up families in the Dominican Republic, including gender roles, family loyalty, young adults working to support families, men as the typical head of household and decision-making, marriages that vary based on socioeconomic class, and family trees that extend far. To emphasize again, a lot of our research and the statements made in this presentation are generalizations and don't reflect everyone in the Dominican Republic. We hope that through the general statements and specific case studies of our experience in the community of Los Sanchez, that this information can be a starting point for understanding family structures and the roles in the Dominican Republic. Thank you for watching. We hope this presentation served as a good introduction to family structures and roles in the Dominican Republic and is a good resource for your current and future humanitarian projects.